a room in your house or your entire house, you want it all on time and on budget. Here with their top 5 tips on accomplishing that and getting the look you really want. Please welcome back interior designer Michelle Dirkse. It's good to see you. Remodeling can be so scary because it can be expensive. Your house is sort of out of commission for a while and you want to make sure that you end up with what you really had in mind. So we're going to see some pictures of some before projects, but while we do that, talk us through how you figure out, you know, do I want to remodel this room? How do I figure out what I want to change about it?
Right. Well, I think the most important thing is that you do your research up front. So the more research and planning you do ahead of time, the more likely your project to come out the way you want it, looking great, on time and on budget. So
I've done a few on the fly. I can tell you that that's not the best way. So these are some before spaces and kind of what you had to work with your client, sort of figuring out what you wanted to do.
Right.
So what do we need to be thinking about?
So I think you want to make sure that you figure out what your style is. So look at magazines, tear out images that you're drawn to, look at Pinterest, create a board. House is another research option. So just do your research up front. Don't expect that you just have it all in your head or that you're going to know what you want. Research for things that you like and you might surprise yourself. You might find that you really love all neutrals, or that you like some color, or you like a different metal finish than you thought you would like. So if you research,
you don't know till you start looking around, right? And you as a designer need to know how we're going to use this room. You know, do we have a lot of kids who are going to be spilling cranberry juice everywhere? Are we really neat and clean? You can tell I'm number 1, not number 2. So show us a few of the things that you've brought here, because part of it is there are all these new surfaces that work so much better than the old stuff.
Yeah, I love using quartz for countertops instead of you know, marble or granite. I love that we have different finishes here. So you know, you can get a black faucet, the you know, typical chrome or satin nickel. This isn't
going to have fingerprints on it.
That one
I'm
isn't.
So excited about.
Yeah, and I actually love the new brass. So the brass of the 80s, you know, super high gloss, and now we have the new natural brass that looks almost like the satin nickel was to the chrome.
It's just a nice, almost matte finish.
And then these new wood flooring options. I'm really excited about having less red tones, less orange tones in your wood and doing something more neutral, whether that be a warm natural wood, high contrast black, a kind of warm gray, or a clean neutral wood tone.
And those things are practically indestructible these days, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends if there's different options, different ways to finish it. So again, you want to do your research.
And be careful with that.
Yeah.
Okay, you also say, here's another thing I did wrong, select everything in advance.
Yes, so oftentimes people will meet with their contractor and they're like, how much is it going to be? Well, that's kind of like asking how much it's going to be to make dinner without knowing what your recipe is. So, I mean, it depends what you're making.
I don't know, what do you want to buy?
So your contractor can't tell you how much it's going to be until he knows what you're doing and what you're using to make it happen. So select everything in advance, and I mean everything, the knobs, the light fixtures, the countertops, the type of cupboard, the sizing of the cupboards, and if you select all of that in advance, your contractor will have the correct recipe so that he or she can tell you how much it's going to be.
So can you start with the contractor by saying, this is what I want to do, tell me how much of whatever it is I'm going to need to accomplish that, so that you can properly price it out when you go to look at your tile and other things, or whatever you're going to use?
Right, I recommend that you do all of that before. So the contractor can give you a ballpark of, you know, typically kitchens of this size range between this and this, but they really cannot tell you until you have done all of the drawings
down to
and selected everything.
Okay, and so that means choosing your paint, choosing everything. You've got all the other things. It's amazing. I'm shocked by how much you can spend on things like hardware.
Exactly, and so that's why we don't want to put our contractors in a position of them guessing at what level or what quality you're getting.
But if you choose it ahead of time, you can also kind of say, all right, I don't care that much about this. I can go down a little on this, but this is important to me over here.
I'm doing that for my own remodel, exactly.
What are you remodeling?
My whole house.
Oh my gosh, and you're documenting all of this,
I am going to, yes, with video even.
I can't wait to see what you do. I think that's going to be amazing when you do it. And so there are some plans.
Yeah, so just basically that, you know, you want to do, whether you're drawing it or you're working with someone who's drawing it, you want to do a full plan set. And because again, you know, your contractor won't know what you mean if we're just pointing. And then full elevation views where, you know, this is how the cupboards are going to work. This is how the tile is going to line up with the bottom of that cupboard and transition into this. All of that stuff you won't know if you don't do it in advance, and it will look like an accident.
All right, so I'm going to need a designer then, because I won't be able to do that. So, and then we obtain bids, obviously, from contractors once we have that decided. Now the fun stuff, before and afters. Let's take a look. These are the same befores, right, that we saw, but what you did with them. So talk us through these.
Yeah, so for this,
so pretty.
Thank you. So for this bedroom, we didn't want to do a whole lot. We actually used the existing dresser that was built in. We painted it, painted the room, and it's new wallpaper. So just a refresh for that room with new furniture, but again, the key things were replacing the wallpaper and new paint for this room.
Totally new. I love this room.
And this room, we got rid of the carpet, we updated the lighting, and some paint and new floors.
And you've taught us before that focus wall, that blue wall, just the thing that you want to draw your eye to, not some random wall.
Right, right. And it really depends on the client whether or not we'll do the whole room or not do that at all. But for this project, it made sense. And yeah, we opened this up entirely, so the kitchen was enclosed in that tiny room. And
how awful.
It was, yeah.
Like being on a ship.
And they have a growing family. They wanted, you know, to be open so everyone could enjoy time together. And we were able to work with our contractor so that the plumbing was actually going through that wall. And so we rerouted it. And so you'll notice that in the peninsula, the cabinets are protruding forward a bit. And it's so that the plumbing is hidden inside of that. And then we rerouted it through the peninsula into the adjacent wall. So again, we couldn't have done that on the fly.
Right.
It's not like the TV shows where we just guess.
And then 30 minutes later, it looks great.
Yeah.
But the other thing you've told us about is that taking some walls down or moving some things is not normally that big of a deal. That needed some planning, but it shouldn't stop you from doing it.
Right. I mean, again, you want to talk with your contractor. It depends if it's a load-bearing wall, if you have to put in an additional beam so that it's possible, permitting for that. If it's a non-structural wall, it shouldn't be a big deal. But again, we don't know what's in that wall, and that's the big deal.
That's the big deal. All right. Thank you so much. Great things for us to think about. We'll be right back.